So, I mean, I'm going to sort of dive right in really with some introductions of we've got four guests this afternoon. So I'm going to start with, I guess we go on alphabetical order. So Amo, did you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for inviting us. I'll be really quick. So some of you probably don't know what UK Music is. It's a body that was set up around 10 to 12 years ago. And what you have in the music industry, you have a number of trade bodies, MMF being one that manages and helps to support managers. There's loads of trade bodies, Musicians Union, PPL, PRS. And around 12, 15 years ago, government said, look, that you all want to change public policy. You're all coming to government or politicians with your wants and your asks. Can you just have one voice? Which is hugely complicated. So they set this thing up called UK Music. So what you have is 11 trade bodies that work within UK Music, and UK Music acts as a sort of intermediary between government, public policy, and representation in the music industry. And it's hugely complicated because, there's always problems, there's always disagreements in the music industry, which is exciting on one hand, challenging on the other. The diversity task force in which I chair is something quite unique that was set up in 2012. The record label said, we need to do more about diversity. So they signed this charter. And I remember going to the room in 2012 thinking, this is a bit weird. We've got these sort of middle-aged white men signing this charter, many from the record labels, and then you had a sort of very diverse audience going, yes, we believe in diversity. Anyway, the task force started in 2012. Keith was the chair originally, and every 2 years we do a report. In the last 2 years, obviously, the report historically has been about data and information gathering on how good or bad is it in terms of the workforce. Obviously, the last year and a half, 2 years has been phenomenal in terms of just the shift. And for us, it was always about trying to readdress the balance with not just a report, but a strategy called the 10-point plan, and then an audit framework that assesses how well we've done. So we're in the middle of this kind of major audit on how well we've done in the diversity field. And we tend not to use equality anymore. We use equity because we feel there's a bit of a change and shift. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight in terms of UK Music and my work.
Thanks, Amo. Sorry, my cough is still there. It's real. Komali, did you want to give a quick hi?
Hi, everyone. I'm Komali. I'm an A&R at Parlophone Records, and I'm also a founding member of the Black Music Coalition, along with Sheryl, who's also on the call, and also founder of The Debrief, which is a space for Black women executives in the music industry as well.
Great. Tremendous work with The Debrief and the award-winning Black Music Coalition. It was a real joy at the Artist Manager Awards to see you pick up that award. So yeah, really exciting. And Sheryl, did you want to say it? Where's this?
Hello, I'm here. Hi. Can you hear and see me? So my name's Sheryl Nwosu. I am the chair of the Black Music Coalition. I'm also a lawyer, and I consult somewhat in the diversity, equity and inclusion space, and also describe myself as an anti-racism advocate, because a lot of times when we use the words diversity, equality or equity and inclusion, we forget anti-racism, which is separate but obviously related to those causes. So yeah, the Black Music Coalition was a body which was created in 2020 in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, and also in the wake of Blackout Tuesday, when the music industry stopped for a day to take stock of where they were. And that gave an opportunity for the Black execs who were working within the industry to take stock of their experiences. And it's their experiences and the conversations that were had around those experiences, which really formed the genesis seed of the Black Music Coalition. And so we advocate on behalf of Black execs. We advocate to organizations in the music industry and advise on their DE&I strategies, but also specifically holding the ideal of anti-racism, anti-Black racism at our core.
Thank you. Yeah, really important. It's one of the words that definitely got a lot of awareness, I think, 18 months ago, the anti-racism. So how are you actually being anti-racist? And I think we've used that certainly in the Unite dialogues many times. And finally, moving on to Selina.
Hello everyone, thanks for having me. So I'm Selina and I work at Your Army Music Promotions. So we do radio plug-in, TV and DJ promo. So we basically make sure that we get the music heard in all the right places. We love breaking new artists and taking established artists' career to the next level as well. So we've got a varied roster of artists ranging from Dave, Sam Smith, Disclosure, Christine and the Queens, Miss Banks. So we want to make sure that we're covering all genres of music. So recently we've recruited a Black music specialist plugger because we feel that in order to help promote Black music particularly, it's good to have somebody who understands the music and is able to strategize and get the music promoted in the right places. I also run a company with my friend Lloyd, who's an A&R at Warner, called Tempo and Flow, and that's started off as a live music night for up and coming artists, giving them a platform to perform. During lockdown, we created a podcast which had various people across the industry, well-established executives sharing their knowledge and helping those who want to break their career within the music industry. And I also work with some artists as well, doing some management and development, and that's me.
Right, everyone does so much in all different areas. So we're going to move on to we've got 3 topics today that we wanted to explore. And there'll be a chance for questions and a bit of conversation after the panelists have explored these topics. And the first topic we wanted to address was the black tick box. Was one of the sort of focal points, I guess. So we've seen lots and lots of actions or promises, I imagine. I think what I'd love to know is how's it felt and really looked for, how's it felt for our panelists, and have they looked like real actions, sort of as general observations? Sheryl, could I ask you first?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I talk about when I'm often asked about changes and actions in the music space, in the industry. And one of the things that I make clear, not wanting to be trite, is that this work really is a marathon and not a sprint. And I say that to say that there are stages which have to be gone through before I think people will see more of the tangible changes which all of the organizations here and indeed all of you are pressing for. And I don't say that to let anybody off the hook, but I say that to say that we are only, well, let me start by saying this, that the work that the Black Music Coalition are doing is not new. We are not the first people to traverse this path, right? We seized the zeitgeist of 2020 and wanted to continue and move forward with that. But we are in a new time because some of the factors that are new is that we have real attention, we have real appetite that we may not have had in previous years for change. But the fact is we've had a long-standing system of inequality, which has just been left in a general malaise. Things just happen. Things happen because they happen. Nobody knows quite why things happen in that way, but they do. And so the change of those systems and practices and people's mindsets and the way people feel able to talk or not talk, and things that people say or don't say, and the gaps that haven't been engendered in the industry, so pay gaps, opportunity gaps, etc., etc. All of that takes a long time to identify, to consider ways in which it can be changed, to action those changes, and then to see the real changes. So there have been changes, in my view, and most of those changes are with people putting in practices which are a lot more than lip service at the moment. But I also think that there is a long way to go, and that's often my answer to questions about how much change have you seen? Because we are only really 12, 18 months in. And so I want to be realistic with anyone who listens, with anyone who's observing, in that there will be change, it is being actioned, but it's going to happen over a very long period of time, much like in the way that the whole system of inequality was built up and was solidified over a long period of time. So I hope that's answered the question without sounding too vague.
No, I think that's really important, because you've highlighted that change often is only really measured over a long period, and that the marathon is the important thing. And I certainly was very aware of friends not engaged in anti-racism or even Black culture or being an ally at all. And they might have put up a square for 24 hours, they might have read a book, but that was perhaps what changed them. It was a moment. And I think that tokenism was felt by some. But I wonder, is tokenism a threat of the long shift, and how can people be supportive, and how do people feel about that? How, Komali, Selina, have you got experiences or thoughts around that you might want to share?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think it's about educating people, because I feel it's the lack of understanding sometimes that people believe that this is the whole tokenism thing, that people only getting in certain positions because of the fact that there needs to be more diversity. But what I would say is that this whole movement has just highlighted, like Sheryl said, this has been going on for decades, so now it's just like highlighted and it's put it in everyone's faces of all the adversity that we've had to deal with. So I feel like the more we talk about it is the more that we bring awareness to it. Yes, it's uncomfortable for some people because it's a sensitive subject, but I feel that we need to be uncomfortable in order to make these changes happen, and not be afraid to face it and speak up. Because believe it or not, people that you see in these positions, they've worked hard to get there. It's not because it's just handed out to them or just given to them because of the sake of them being Black. That's not the case at all. And I feel, for me personally, if anybody wants to ask questions, they can. I'm more than welcome to share my experiences and my, what I've been through. But yeah, we just need to kind of stomp that out a little bit, this whole tokenism thing, in my opinion.
Komali, did you want to add anything at this point?
Yeah, I was just going to say that for me, I think there is a little bit of that in terms of trying to get Black faces, particularly into certain buildings and positions that they weren't before. And I think the next hurdle that we have to get over, that's not to say that any of those people that have been given those jobs aren't good enough or shouldn't be there. But a lot of them that I've seen so far have been men more than women. I think the issue isn't just to give them a kind of vanity hire in a position that they kind of maybe sometimes make up just to make up numbers, where actually we want to be at the top level of these companies, the board members who actually are stakeholders in these companies, as well as right the way down, because it does trickle down rather than only having, you know, black faces at an internship level or entry positions, and maybe the odd senior leadership. We want above that and all the things in between. And I think once we kind of get over the tokenism thing, we've got to start somewhere. And I think if that's what it takes to get some feet in the door, so be it, you know, off the back of this movement. But ultimately, it isn't because those black people aren't good enough for the job. They are excellent at those jobs, and they need to be given the chances, and particularly black women, in a way that they haven't before.
Right, thank you.
Oh, can I just?
Yeah, I was going to move to Ammo. Yeah.
So I just want to pick up on something Sheryl said around words. So most organisations, if you go to a company, they'll say we're non-racist, and just by moving the dial to anti-racist, it's just a little shift, but it's massive. And I think this is really, really important. I also think that I don't think people generally understand the statistics. The evidence is really clear. Having more women in the company is better for the bottom line. Having diverse and divergent thoughts is better for the bottom line. So isn't it interesting, in the music industry, women get paid less, people of color get paid less. So if you're a black woman, it's a double whammy. But the evidence says having more women and having diversity is better for the bottom line. So it's like we're starting in one area here and we should be here. And this is the evidence. It's not something that's subjective. It's not me or Sheryl or Komali making these things up. This is a fact. These are facts. And I think we need to extrapolate those facts more to say it's not just about what happened last year. This is also about what's relevant to modern day Britain and also what we're exporting to the world. And I think this is really important stuff. Non-racism, anti-racism, really important.
Mm-hmm. Right, Ammo.
Sorry, could I just add one thing as well, that I think it's important to understand this is an inclusive movement, because we do need allies. We need to work together. It's not just for, the black community to be pushing this narrative of change being required. We need to work together because we've all identified that it's needed. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you for that addition there. Ammo, I wanted to sort of expand a little bit on the, I guess, the accountability and the statistics and the threat of tokenism being around statistics. You're working alongside a lot of the trade bodies and therefore membership organisations. And how do you think the implementation for action to prove statistical change goes alongside the actual practice of cultural change? What sort of observations have you got from that with the 10-point plan being implemented?
So it's a long haul. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It takes time. That's the first thing. I'm not making excuses, by the way. I think you have to really identify accountability and responsibility, because if everybody's responsible, no one's responsible. And then you need stuff like strategy or drivers or performance indicators that kind of help you shift the dial, and you need to do it with people. So something that Selina said earlier, again, it's definitely working with people, and it's looking at that cross section or that intersection. So obviously, we've come out, Me Too, Black Lives Matter, there's some major global things that have happened. And sometimes energy, we've all got bandwidth for certain areas. So we've got to make sure that we put our energy and our time into the things that are really going to make the change. Some of it is some quick wins and some of it's really slow. But I think taking people on a journey as well. Some people are really quite advanced in this EDI field. Some people don't understand their own echo chambers, and they don't understand how far they are. And also some people thinking well, that was last year now. Can we just move on? So there's a bit of that as well. But what I found with the trade bodies is if you work with people, you explain stuff, you have hard conversations, you hold people to account. But they tend to come around as long as you know that people are definitely accountable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I mean, that's the trade bodies, and they're organisations that do policy, quite strategic work, and represent members. I think I'm interested to know how we can unpack it a little bit, because this is what, the MMF membership is primarily very small businesses and individuals. And I'm wondering if, like Selina, I know you're a relatively small company compared to sort of the large companies, like record labels and music publishers, etc. How do you think actions can be made in smaller companies?
From my personal experience, it starts at the top. So Christian and James have been really supportive. Working alongside them, they really wanted to see how they could help. And like I mentioned earlier, having the Black Music Specialist plugger was part of that, because it was like, okay, what can we do more to make sure that we are being inclusive? So it's definitely comes from whoever's running the company. They need to want to be open to change. And like, for example, we put on for Black History Month a competition for UK Black music artists to be able to do a free campaign, for example, because it's not cheap doing PR. So those little things all contribute and help. And the winner of that competition, Shantae Paris, she got plays really supported by BBC radio, and she got a lot of exposure. So I feel like if you do those kind of little things, whatever you can contribute all helps, basically. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be millions of pounds or thousands of pounds invested. You can find ways that you can help support the community.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, like, as a team, you worked together on that? It was something you consciously worked and thought of those actions about what we can do in the scale that we can achieve them?
Yeah, definitely, because I wanted to make sure, for me personally, that it wasn't just, me pushing the narrative. I wanted to make sure that as a company, if we're going to do something, it's because, the company believe in it. Otherwise, it will just be, again, just me doing it for my own purposes, and just, like you said about people putting up a black square and not really believing in what they're posting. They just think, oh, let's put it up so that I don't look like I don't care about it. So so in my experience, yes, James, Christian and the rest of the team were on board, which was great.
And that sort of thinking is something that an independent manager or a very small company could work together with other people to work out their own appropriate actions, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Sheryl and Komali, I'd love to talk more about the plans, I guess, for the Black Music Coalition, because I'm aware that there's a independent fraction which is has a number of managers engaged and self-employed people and that. But it would be great if you could sort of talk through the structure and the I guess the next 18 months of what you're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, so the Black Music Coalition at present is run by its executive arm. So the executive committee is myself as chair, Komali Scott-Jones, who's on this call, and two other Black music execs, Shah Grant and Afriye Henry Fontaine. We are supported, advised and steered by a wider committee who again are all Black executives working in UK music, and they are working at all levels across all sectors. We have a standing committee called BMCI, who are our independent committee. And as you just said, Paul, they work across the independent side of the sector and are themselves self-employed as individuals, etc. And their eyes and their focus are really in keeping with our manifesto, but specifically pointed at the independent side of the UK music industry. So talking about what we want to do and moving forward, I want to come to a question that I saw in the chat. And it's a question from Lekan, who said, how is the best way? And it kind of attaches to what I was saying before about, and what Amo was saying about it being a marathon, not a sprint. But Lekan asked, how's the best way we can measure progress and change over the forthcoming years? So to talk manifests into action and change, not just years and years of talk. One of the things that the Black Music Coalition have in development and about near ready to launch, subject to a couple of other factors, is a process by which we can check and hold organisations to account, whilst also assisting with the diversity, anti-racism, equity, inclusion aims that they say that they have. And it's a scheme which can monitor those aims, check whether they have lived up to those set aims that they may have, and also us as an organisation doing what we always do, which is to assist and guide and advise on those aims. And so we are confident that the scheme that we are preparing, if it is taken up by organisations in the industry, will allow us to actually effectively monitor changes and ensure that they are being put into place and there is real tangible change. So that's one of our major plans for the future and moving forward. Another thing that we are completely passionate about as a coalition is ensuring that Black execs, Black professionals everywhere get their just dues. And that's not just about remuneration. That's not just about being moved up the ladder, but that's also about understanding, respecting, and being aware of what those people have brought to this industry. Because the chokeholds that Black music has on the music industry is not a new thing. You know, it's you look at the charts, we run this thing. You look at adverts now that are on the television, you look at every part of popular culture and you will find Black influence there. And that Black influence has been carried into the industry by Black execs, other execs as well, non-Black execs as well. But we really want to celebrate, highlight and solidify the reputation of those Black execs that have come before, the ones that we are serving now and the ones that we are serving in the future, so that we don't have any backslip in 10 years' time where people can pretend to forget the effect that Black culture has had on this industry and indeed on this whole island that we call, you know, England. So that's another thing that we are working on. And as I say, the more we grow, the more we are able to advocate on behalf of individuals, because that's another arm that we didn't even foresee when we created the Black Music Coalition, that specific individuals would contact us with their issues, with their hurts, with their problems that are happening within their professional environs simply because of their race, and how their race perhaps intersects, as somebody else has already mentioned, with other protected characteristics, with perhaps their sexuality, with perhaps any kind of disabilities. And so us having all this constant contact from individuals has made us live to the fact that we actually want to grow enough and be funded enough so that we can assist those individuals. So that's a little bit, I hope, of an outlook of the BMC for the future. So look out for us.
Great, thank you. Komali, did you wish to add anything at this junction, or?
Just another little aside is how important legacy is, which Sheryl did touch on. But yeah, just trying to do as many events and kind of outreach projects, connecting with different people that we mentioned in our resource pack, to just really make sure that we are creating a better future for the upcoming Black execs and for the whole industry. Like Selina said, this isn't just about Black people and the work that we have to do. It's about making it a joined up place for everyone, and a competitive space, and all of our companies, our individual journeys and careers to be strengthened by that joined up thinking and that unity. I just think it's really important. And yeah, that's something that we're really gonna be focused on in lots of different ways. And, you know, some more exciting ways, interactive ways that people can actually see it in real life, especially after, you know, 2 years of being locked up. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes peeled on some of the future plans that we've got in real life.
That's great. There's a question from Annabella here that talks about some of the plans that the Black Lives in Music have been discussing about establishing an anti-racism code of practice. And I wondered sort of how you relate with them, and you know, how you vision perhaps something like that coming into the industry.
For my perspective, it's interesting that we're talking about an anti-racism code of practice, because of course, anti-racism, in a sense, is already codified into UK law. And so racist practices in the workplace or in a public environment are already, in theory, accounted for under specific pieces of legislation. But we know, and again, it relates to BLIM, we know through their own survey that it doesn't always work, because you have organizations who have practices which allow effective racism to take hold in organizations. So we support the idea of an anti-racist code of conduct. We have worked quite closely with BLIM in the preparation stages of the survey that I just referred to, and we continue to be in constant dialogue with them about moving forward and about tackling specific areas in the industry, because the industry is a vast place. You know, the industry, as we talk about it, is a vast place. So we stand alongside them in their plans. We are ad idem with them on their plans. And I think that a lot of the plans that many of us organizations have in mind will kind of like root out the proof in the pudding of those organizations who did post those black squares, and whether they are really about that life or whether that was just lip service, because there will be asks. There will be asks from us, from BLIM, from all the various other organizations. The Power Up Pledge is another one that we are across as partners of Power Up. So there will be asks. And so, yeah, we are a united front, but it remains to be seen how real now the industry will get when there are specific asks placed at their feet.
Thank you. Yeah, it's sort of crunch time going forward, isn't it? You just mentioned Power Up, and Selina, you're a participant on the Power Up program this year, aren't you? Did you just want to give us any news, or how's that going? And then I think I'm going to move the conversation on into the live music field, which again, actually, Selina, you started your work in, you said.
Yeah, so Power Up, I feel that I'm really grateful to have been selected for the first year, and it's absolutely brilliant to see so much talent in one network is amazing. And I think the great thing is that with this network, we are able to have these open conversations and talk about how we can help to make changes and stuff. So it's a really, really great program to be part of. And again, BMC are also, you know, part of that, partners with Power Up as well. And just having these organisations back in such a great program really helps, because then we get resources, we get to, you know, have talks and be able to get training in areas that we might not have been able to do in our workplace. So yeah, I'm really excited to see like all the things that come out of Power Up to in the future. I
think, yeah, that's great. I really like the way it's an intersection of the industry, and you've got people working in all different areas, because it's quite easy to become quite siloed, you know, in your own genre bubble or your own sort of work practice. So, and one of the things we have a very diverse sort of membership in genres and everything at the MMF, but one of the common things is around live music. You know, I think live music is something that all genres seem to do. But it's come up time and time again in our Unite work, is around sort of where Black artists experience racism, the difficulties of the workforce in live music. And it's something that, you know, the agency we've been working with, the Zoo, are particularly, they're about events and live. Nicole's on the road right now with Heady One. I wondered if anyone sort of, do you feel that there's enough change or groups or engagement initiatives with the live sector, and what could be done in that area? Amo, I wonder if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I've got loads, but I think, so the live sector they've just set up a live group, which I think is really important, that represents agents and festivals and orchestras and just production services, music venues. I think the MMF are part of it. I think they've got their own themes. I think diversity in the live sector, it's got some work. Yeah, I think often, especially, you know, behind the stage, diversity tends to be about gender rather than other protected characteristics. And I think the live sector has to go, it's got some work to do, and it's got colleagues around, not this Zoo, but, you know, around the country willing to help shape what they're going to do. I think it's really important that whilst we have this moment, we really move the dial and share with them all our resources, whether it's BLIM or BMC or UK Music, around some of the work that we've done. I think that it'll be interesting to see how far the live sector has shifted the dial in 12 months on the back of what's happened, because there hasn't been a live sector as well. So we're quite reflective and respectful, and have empathy with a sector that hasn't been around for 18 months. But I think, you know, if I'm honest, I think the live sector has to do better than what it was doing before when it comes to all the protected characteristics. It has to go beyond just wheelchair access for festivals or internships for particular diverse communities. But I think they've got some really good people in the sector. Hopefully not everybody's migrated to other areas of work, and be interested to see, as I said, what happens in 12 months' time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I think what I think's interesting about the live sector is it's the most human sector of our industry. It's where people meet, no matter the audience and the artist and the workforce at large, and so that's where we're going to see the most sort of human changes, sort of culturally, and I sort of, as we go into the reopening of live, hopefully everyone's feeling that they're able to go to spaces, but there is the sort of mental health and well-being and the difficulties of that's with COVID, with the economic sort of issues that are being experienced by different sectors and different individuals. Yeah, is there a sort of a big shift in Black mental health and well-being that we need to discuss, be aware of, to think about? That was our sort of third area of topic, and we've got about 15 minutes to look at this. Anyone got any sort of lead thoughts? Thanks, Komali.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to cut over your
No,
thought.
that's great. Go for it.
I think that it's such an important part of this whole thing. And I think the really important element of Blackout Tuesday and why it's been so effective is because we were going through a global pandemic, which none of us have ever done before. So this has been, you know, a time where we've had extra strain, a lot of grief, loss, confusion. And so as a whole, everybody's mental health has probably been, you know, in tatters compared to the beginning of 2019. And on top of that, to witness like such a monstrosity, it wasn't anything new. We'd seen, you know, Black people die at the hands of the police before, but having it in, you know, 4K for 9 minutes was something, it was new, it was undeniable. And it really, the main difference was we all had a chance to stop and think about that in a different way. We didn't have to, you know, as Black people, as Black staff, have to try and get on with our day and have like an awkward conversation at the coffee machine about, oh, how awful it is, and have to, you know, crack on. And I think a lot of these types of issues, Black people are expected to carry with no question, no empathy. And there's only so much of that any person can take, not let alone us who, you know, we're dealing with a lot of systematic issues that are affecting our day to day. And so I think that Black mental health has to be at the forefront of all of these discussions, and a heightened sensitivity to how these things are dealt with, and making sure that your Black staff are looked after. That's not to say that anyone else's mental health isn't important, but, you know, even through healthcare, you can see that Black people's treatment is always lesser. For some reason, people we're perceived to be stronger than others, and that's not always the case. Yeah, some of us are strong, some of us are made of china, you know what I mean? And I think having that range and understanding of us as humans and what we may go through is really, really important. I'm going to mute now because I'm outside and there's a helicopter going over me. Sorry.
We can still hear you, just if you wanted to finish with anything.
It was so loud, sorry, it just went right over me. But yeah, I think that is just really the key. I think it's not fair on any Black person, especially, you know, depending on what sector. And, you know, this is the MMF, it's managers. You guys are moving as a sole entity. You don't always have the protection of a team where other Black people or other allies are there. And I think it's just a really important thing to feel like you're supported and there's somewhere for you to turn if things are getting hard or you're experiencing racism or any prejudice against you, to have those feelings validated and have a way to explore how you resolve them, rather than kind of being shunned and gaslit, to be honest. So yeah, I think there's some good work. There's some amazing organizations that have been in existence already or have launched since, and people trying to make the use of those resources. But yeah, I think that has to be at the forefront if, you know, we really want to support our Black staff and teammates.
Komali, or anyone else, could I ask you to just expand on where, you know, do you think there's enough resources or enough targeted resources that are specialising around mental health and well-being? You know,
I think there are. I think there are enough, but I think it's just whether they're affordable, how they're being publicised, who it feels like is able to connect with them. And I think in the list of questions that you guys sent over, there was a point about how therapy is even perceived in the Black community, and it is quite a new thing. I think it's quite a new thing for British people generally. I think it's quite an Americanized concept to go and, you know, sit on a couch and talk through your feelings, and we're very much stiff upper lip. But I think also as Black people, we haven't really had the space. We haven't been taught that that's how we get through our issues. You kind of, you know, you soldier through them because there wasn't really an outlet, and that's obviously changing, which is amazing. But yeah, I think there needs to probably be a little bit of an extra push in this direction, just to show that this is something that is available, acceptable, helpful, and something that they can really benefit from. Because I think, yeah, it's definitely one community. I don't think it's the only community, but it's definitely one where therapy isn't as widely offered or talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just add something as well? Just Amo made the point earlier, and of course, just in his usual terms, he's always on the money, about it being beneficial to organizations to have female staff, right? It's also beneficial. I can't believe we even need to have these kind of discussions. It's also beneficial to organizations to have healthy staff. It's also beneficial to have for organizations to have functioning staff. And so to me, it is utter madness that organizations don't see the benefit of supporting their staff's mental health, or supporting, from a holistic point of view, the lives of their staff, the cultures of their staffs. To me, it's nutty. And so basically I say all of that to say that it ought to become a centralized point and a centralized part of what HR do, what task forces within, and I don't just mean racial diversity task forces, I mean task forces across the board, whatever you're set up for. If you don't have the health and the well-being of your staff at your center, at your core, I don't know what you're doing. And I'll just say another factor about racism, and a lot of times people just think about racism in terms of the offense it causes. When I think about racism, I think about the way in which it kills people. The way in which it kills people when decisions are made in housing systems, in educational systems, in the healthcare system, in your professional lives. It kills people. The way it impacts upon our mental health as a community and as individuals, it kills people. And so it must be, mental health awareness must remain at the heart of anti-racism work, because of its impact, but also because of the impact upon those who shoulder the burden of the work. That's another point that we can't forget. So I just wanted to add those points to the discussion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? That was just, it's exactly spot on with the whole mental health thing. I've just completed the mental health first aid training through Power Up, and it's the stigma. Like, people are still afraid to speak up and say when they're struggling, and especially in the Black community, like Komali said, like it used to be frowned upon, and like I think people are scared to say because they feel like people will judge them. And I think we need to really try and push to get rid of that, stigma, or making people feel any type of way if they are struggling, because it is difficult. And like with everything that happened with George Floyd, I mean, just asking, your Black friends, oh, are you okay? How are you? Little things like that, showing you care is a massive support. So I feel like, just because whatever community it is, if they're going through something, just ask, are you okay? Do you need any support? And particularly as a manager of artists as well, when I work with any artists, I always make sure that they don't burn themselves out, because it's easy to just be like on the go and looking at opportunities and think this is going to make some money and, keep going and keep pushing your artist. But there comes a point that you have to sometimes see when they're not like, not feeling themselves, and know when to stop. So I feel like what Sheryl said, it's always important when you're working with anyone, especially if you're a manager, make sure that whoever you're working with is okay, because that's what is most important.
Really important messages, and yeah, incredible to hear your thinking around that. Mental health has been one of our key pillars in the work that we do, and I'm always encouraging managers that I work with on the programs, to look after themselves as well. It's not just the artists, it's the individuals. I think we're almost done on the sort of core subjects that we were wanting to discuss this afternoon. And it's sort of time to move into some questions, if there's any burning questions, which Nicole was going to take over because she's now settled in her hotel room. So hi, Nicole, how are you?
Good afternoon, guys. Hi, I do send my apologies. It's been a wild day. Thank you to our speakers for joining us this afternoon. Kamal, are you able to help me facilitate some of the questions that have been dropped into the chat before we wrap up today? I think some of them have been asked. I can see one from Lekam. It says, are the organizations of Mercury Prize on board with this initiative? It has come to light that the late MCTY won the 2004 Mercury Prize. However, Edith Bowman wasn't happy with the outcome and demanded that the judges do their judgment again, which is how Kaiser Chief won instead. How often has this happened over the years but gone unsaid? So I think that the question, and Lekan, feel free to unmute yourself, is just asking, are the organizations of Mercury Prize, the boards, and those similar, are they on board with the similar initiatives that have been put into place by the industry?
I think that they should be more on board than they are. It's obviously hard to know or measure how often that's happened, but I wouldn't be surprised. Fun fact, actually, my mum and dad used to manage Ty, and were managing him at the time of that award. And yeah, I think it was very normal at that time for Black artists, especially rappers, to be overlooked in that way. And it's only been probably since, I would say, en masse, probably since 2015, 2016, where we've had this influx of Black British artists really be able to storm the charts. And, we're kind of seeing a renaissance of that on both sides of the coin, artists and execs, which has been amazing. But it's been a long road to get here, and it's been a lot of incredible artists being overlooked and completely undermined in their position, and missing out on massive opportunities that would have, allowed their careers and lives to take a different course. It's immeasurable to know what the difference that would have made to Ty's career, who sadly passed away last year. But it's that's at the heart of what the Black Music Coalition stands for, and what Amo does in his work, and all of us are kind of here fighting against, because that in itself, even to go back to the mental health thing, to be so close and to be working that hard, and to be, an artist working at a certain level, and to be snubbed on such a platform, it takes this toll on people. And it means that we're losing incredible artists, we're losing incredible execs, because the glass ceiling, there's only so many times you want to slap your head against that glass ceiling. And yeah, so it genuinely is, our call out to the industry in our letter that we sent out last year was for everyone. It's not just labels, it's not just Spotify, Apple, etc. It is everybody to check their biases and do better, and make sure that, all these groups, but particularly in our case, Black artists and Black execs, are being recognized the way they deserve to be, and not overlooked when, we contribute so much to this industry, which, is turning over an amazing amount of money each year. I hope that answers your question a little bit, Lekan. Sorry. It was a bit of a windy one, but.
Thank you, Komali, so much. I'm aware there are a few outstanding questions in the chat. What we would do is pose it to the speakers, just because we're aware that we are running short on time, and we appreciate all the time that they're given today, especially during it's the middle of the day. So I just want to come back and just kind of this session this afternoon, and thank everyone for attending, first and foremost, especially, like I said, it's been the middle of the afternoon, whereas we normally do it at 6 p.m. And then thank you to the MMF for putting this series together. We've been going since February this year. We've had different panelists each month talking on different topics. And we're just really appreciative to all the panelists that's come through, including yourself on the call today. We will do a recap of this session as always, and all of the previous sessions are on MMF's YouTube site. So if you want to watch back any of them or get any resources or information, then they will all be there and listed. And the plans for 2022, I don't know, I'm going to try and find Paul's facial expression somewhere. We are trying to navigate from just conversations and really take tangible action. So we're looking at the options of kind of doing more workshops and facilitators more than just having an hour and a half discussion around kind of the same different topics. We're trying to make more initiatives happen, more progression happen. And so that it's not just now we've returned to the new normal, everyone's gone back to managing, back to the office, that these discussions are no longer important. So hopefully, Paul, I can see you. We will start again next year, February 2022. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Definitely a great discussion. If anyone that wants any resources or want to hit up the speakers directly, we will be sharing their social links within our newsletter and within the MMF newsletter, which goes out on a Wednesday. For anyone that is not an MMF member that's joined today that would like to become a member, then by all means hit up myself, Paul, Annalise, Komali, and Kamal, sorry, Annabella, who's on the chat, or just a general info email, and we'll be happy to loop you guys in. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to our speakers, and everyone stay safe, enjoy your Christmases, the festive season. I know it's a bit preempt you, because we're not having one in December, but by all means stay in touch, and thank you for your time this afternoon.